In this session, we're going to discuss carbohydrate counting and also go over how you would do your My Plate assignment for carb counting. A lot of you are going to go into nursing, and as we mentioned in the carbohydrate health concerns presentation, diabetes is increasing and doesn't seem like it's decreasing. So I assume you're going to encounter a lot of diabetics in your career. What I wanted to do is make sure that you're introduced to carb counting because, as I've talked about with pre-nurses before, you are a lot of times an educator in with your patients because they may have questions about carbohydrate counting. Maybe they've talked to a dietitian and they've tried to um, teach them carb counting, but they're just not getting it, and they may have questions about things. So I wanted to introduce it to you just so you'd be prepared to possibly answer their questions. Or if you're on a healthcare team with a dietitian and they're talking about the patient and that they put them on a carb counting diet, then you would be in the ballpark. So that's what my hope is today um, in in doing that. For this assignment, you are going to be a newly diagnosed diabetic. So you're going to have to do some adjustments, possibly in your food intake, to match your insulin levels. Or if you're type 2, maybe just change your carb intake. So what we're going to do is go through the process of determining how you could plan a daily meal based on carbohydrate counting. And we're going to be using your 3-day diet data in order to do that. Uh, so we'll go through that scenario, but the reason I like you doing this assignment because I think you will be able to empathize with someone who is a diabetic who has to follow this. It's very regimented, and I think you'll understand why the compliance rate is probably less than 30% on carbohydrate for patients, on carbohydrate counting for patients, because it is pretty regimented and it's something you really have to deal with. And if you're an older patient that hasn't had a lot of math, it can be pretty daunting. And so a lot of them just decide they just can't do it. So anyway, I'm hoping you'll get an idea by doing one of these what a patient is going through, and you can have a little bit of feeling of an appreciation for what they're having to do. Anyway, what you're going to be doing is you're going to be taking your 3-day diet data. You're going to be looking at the values column on your bar graph, and you're going to then use that information to determine carbohydrate, protein, and fat choices. Now, in carb counting, a choice is like how many servings. They just call it choices. So you're going to be looking at your carbohydrates, and you first of all need to determine how many choices of carbohydrates that you eat, first of all, under the value section, and then we'll determine where you would have to be if you were diagnosed as a diabetic. So the first thing you're going to do is you're going to look at that bar graph and you're going to look at the carbohydrate, protein, and fat choices, and then you're going to do some calculations. So if you look at your bar graph, you'll notice under the value column, I've highlighted the protein, carbs, and fat, the totals. And in carbohydrate counting, uh, one protein choice is equal to 7 grams. So you'll notice what I did was I took 92, I just kind of rounded, and divided by 7, and I got 13 choices. So one carbohydrate choice or one serving, I mean protein choice or one serving is 7. For carbohydrates, it's 15 grams is one choice, and then for fat, it's 5 grams. So you go through those and do calculations and determine how many choices that you normally eat. So this value would be an assumption is what this is the way you normally eat, and record that. Then you go to the same bar graph and you're going to look under the DRI column. And you'll notice what I did is I took the protein divided by 7, the carbohydrates by 15, and the fat by 5, and I got those choices. And they're a little bit different than the ones I got under values. So anyway, you're going to record those, and then you're going to compare the food choice amounts for values in DRI and just make a statement that what things would you need to change if you were a newly diagnosed diabetic, especially if we're looking at the carbohydrates and how many carbohydrate choices would there be any changes there? Because again, the carbohydrates are what's going to be changing into sugars. The proteins and fats are important because you need the protein for your immune system and the fat for calories and so forth. But the carbohydrates are going to be turning into sugars, and since you're concerned about your blood sugar levels or blood glucose, then you'd be mostly concerned with your carbohydrates. Um, so anyway, so you're going to submit those in Word or as a PDF as a separate document. So you're going to be submitting 2 documents. One is this one that just shows your calculations and your statement, and then we're going to do a meal plan that you will submit also. Okay, so that would be one. Then you're going to go in and you should see the link to look at my food plan. And it's going to be a document that you're going to fill out. So you need to download that. Use Chrome. It seems to work better than anything else. We've had some problems in the past with students not being able to download and save it and everything. So, but using Chrome seems to work. Then go to the download arrow you see up in the right hand corner there. So you need to click on that download arrow, and then you're going to save your document to somewhere where you can access it, like your desktop or something, and save it as a PDF. And it should be a writable PDF, so you can fill that out. And then you're going to open that saved document, and you should be able to, like I said, be able to type your name and date and then fill in the meal plan for that day on that document. All right, so don't fill it out and then save it. Okay, save it first as a blank document and then fill it out on your desktop or wherever you saved it to. Then what you're going to be doing is you're going to be filling out that daily food plan by determining how many choices of carb, meat, fat you are going to have per meal. And by the time you're done filling out the meal plan, then you should have met the goal of all the choices. Now we're going to be using the DRI choices, not the values, because the DRI would be the one that you would be changed to if you were a newly diagnosed diabetic. Not how you normally eat, but how you need to adjust to the DRI. But basically, in real life, you probably wouldn't use the DRI. It would be determined by your insulin intake or what the dietitian or doctor kind of decided would be the best option. And a lot of times it'll be based on a caloric intake for that. So anyway, but when you get to the form, what you'll notice is there's boxes on the left-hand side, and those are meant to put how many choices of carbohydrates that you would have per meal. And I'll show you how to do that. Then once you put in how many you're going to have for like breakfast or snack or lunch, whatever, then you are going to choose foods that you would eat for that meal that would equal those choices. Now the carbohydrates need to be evenly distributed throughout the day because you're concerned about a big rush of sugar and you don't want to have a big rush of sugar. So you can't have 3 big meals a day with carbohydrates because you would have a big rush of sugar in there and your carb and glucose monitoring system is not working well, so that would not be good for a big rush of those. So you need to even them out as best as you can throughout the day. The assumption would be you'd have 3 more choices, breakfast, lunch, dinner, but then you're going to have some snacks, and it's going to be where you're eating like 6 small meals a day, 6 to 8. In this assignment, it'd be 6. The meat choices, they don't have to be distributed evenly. I mean, it'd be nice if they could, but if you're not one that normally eats meat for breakfast, then you could save those for lunch and dinner. It's just you need to get them all in during the day sometime. But again, the reason for the carbs is the sugar, and the meats are not going to turn into sugar, so you can distribute those any way you want. And the same with the fat choices. You just need to get them in to the day. So here's what the form is going to look like. And you notice on the left-hand side, there are boxes, and that's where you're going to fill in your carbs. Your meats and fats, as we'll show you, don't have boxes for where you put how many choices you're going to eat. So we're going to put those in parentheses right there, and I'll show you how to do that. Anyway, so going back to my DRI goals, you notice I have 9, 23, and 16 choices. So I just put them up in the left-hand corner, as you see. And what I decided to do, I'm going to start with the carbohydrates, and I get 23 choices for the whole day. And now I need to decide how many I'm going to have for each meal. So what I decided to do was to have 4 for breakfast, 2 for snack, and 4 for lunch. But you can choose whatever you want. I'm just kind of going to even them out as best as possible. So that would give me 10 choices so far. And so I've got an afternoon snack, a dinner, and an evening snack that would give me 13 more choices to choose from. Okay? And then you'll notice the meat and the fat, I've got those choices in parentheses. Now, how you're going to determine your carbohydrate choices is that there's like 2 pages on the document that have a list of foods that are going to be considered carbohydrate choices. And they'll list the food, they'll list what a serving size is, and then how many carb choices that would be worth. And as you notice up, I've kind of blocked in that each carbohydrate choice is 15 grams. All right. So what you're going to do then is just go through, and we chose 4 servings for breakfast, and so we're going to have to determine what we're going to eat to get those 4 choices. So what I decided to do is for breakfast, I wanted to have a waffle. And you'll notice that 1 4-inch waffle is 1 choice, and that's 15 grams. I said I wanted to have some syrup with that, so diabetics can still have sugar. It's just that you have to limit it, but I'm going to have 1 tablespoon of syrup, which is 1 choice. And then I decided I'm going to have some orange juice, and you can have a half cup is 1 choice. So as you can see, what I did was I had the 4 choices for carbohydrates, and so I decided to have 2 waffles, which was 2 choices, 1 tablespoon of syrup, 1 choice, and half a cup of orange juice, which is 1 choice. So that gives me my 4 choices. And then you'll notice for snack, I have 1 banana, which is 2 choices. Okay? Now, if you have vegetables, like if you're going to have vegetables for lunch, uh, then you'll notice that each serving of vegetables, which is 1/2 cup cooked, or 1 cup raw of the ones that are listed, you notice that they're all equal 5 grams for every 1/2 cup. So remembering that one choice of carbohydrates is 15, then you will be able to have three servings of cooked servings of 1/2 cup of vegetables, and that will equal 1 carbohydrate choice. Now, you see the vegetables that are listed. What you don't see in that list is corn, and you don't see peas. You don't see potatoes because they're really starchy, so they would not be considered a vegetable in this instance, because they have a lot more sugar in them, from the starch than say that spinach would have or something like that. You'll notice for lunch I had 4 servings of carbohydrates. The 2 slices of bread would be 2, and then the apple is 1. But you'll notice I had some vegetables. And knowing that 1/2 cup of cooked vegetables is a serving of vegetables, but I can have 3 vegetables, then I had 1.5 cups. That would give me 1 carbohydrate choice. So that would give me my 4 choices. Okay. Now the meat substitutes, what you'll notice is that each ounce of meat is 7 grams of protein. If you remember, we divided our grams of protein by 7, and that gave us our how many choices of protein we could get, or meat. So 1 ounce is 7 grams, so 1 ounce is 1 meat choice. But you'll also notice that 3 to 8 grams of fat is also included as part of the meat. So what you look at the average of 3 to 8, that's 5. If you remember that one choice of fat was 5 grams, we divided our grams of fat by 5 to get our choices. Then the average of 3 to 8 is 5. Then we would say that not only would 1 ounce of meat or chicken or whatever be one choice of protein, but it would also be one choice of fat. So for every meat or meat substitute that you eat, it's going to be 2 different things. It's going to be both a meat and a fat choice. So you have to include both of those. All right. So if you look at my breakfast, I decided to have some ham. So I had 2 ounces of ham, which would be 2 meat choices. But you'll also notice that I put it as 2 choices of fat. So for every meat, you need to have a choice of fat. Okay. Now fats are 5 grams for one choice. So you can see there's different serving sizes for a choice. But for every 5 grams, that would be one choice. So you notice I had 2 teaspoons of butter, which is 2 choices. So I had 4 total choices of fat for breakfast. I got 2 from the butter and 2 from the ham. Right? So some students leave the evening snack blank because they say, I normally don't eat a snack before I go to bed. Well, this is not a normal situation. You are a diagnosed diabetic. And so especially if you're taking insulin, you can't go without food for, say, 6 at night until 6 in the morning for 12 hours. Because it's a potential that you could become hypoglycemic. So you have to have something to tide you over while you're sleeping. So you have to have a snack of some kind before you go to bed. So do not leave that blank. You need to add a snack. Over on the right, bottom corner, you'll notice I said do not use that save document link. It just does not seem to work. So don't use it. and we'll be saving it another way, as we already did. So anyway, once you get all of that done, you've completed the assignment. Now you need to submit it. Um, so go ahead and save it again, but again, don't use that Save Document button. Go in and just save it as you normally would. Go into File and Save As, uh, and make sure that, before you save it, make sure all of your um, blanks are filled, for the meal plan and name and date and everything like that. And go to Save As. Uh, and save it as a PDF. Then you can go into Moodle and you can go into the upload uh, of that assignment. Go to Add Submission. Then you're going to click on that little icon under File Submission and add your document. But it's going to ask you to choose a file. So you're going to choose the file. You're going to go to the desktop or wherever you saved it. You're going to choose it. Make sure you give it a name, save as. Then you're going to upload that file. And then you'll notice that under File Submissions, your document is there. It's attached. So you need to save the changes. Okay, so that will save it directly into Moodle, and I'll grade it directly online. All right, so you will have completed that assignment. Now, if you do have problems saving it this way and uploading it and stuff, don't spend tons of time trying to figure it out. You can also go ahead and do a screenshot. It may take 2 screenshots to get the whole meal plan, but whatever. Just go ahead and do screenshots. Maybe you can narrow, get it smaller and do 1 screenshot. But you can submit it that way. So I don't want you to just get all stressed out because you can't save it and all that. Just as long as you can get it filled out, do a screenshot, save it, and then submit it that way. So you're going to be saving 2 documents. You're going to be saving your calculations for values in DRI, and then your statement about any changes you'd have to make. You're going to save that as a Word or PDF, and then you're going to submit that. Then your second document would be the filled in meal plan. So 2 documents that you're going to fill out and save. Okay? The last thing I wanted to go over is just to show you that if you do carb counting, um, then you can also use the food label to determine per serving how many uh, carb choices that there would be, or you could do fat or protein. And so as you notice that this product has 13 carbs per serving, so because 15 grams is 1 choice, the serving of this food would be about 1 choice. So you can utilize the nutrition facts labels for this. All right.